listening to the Marketing Personalities Podcast, a podcast for growth-minded entrepreneurs that serves up valuable insight and interviews about aligning your marketing strategy with your personality type. Because here's the deal. You shouldn't have to feel fake and salesy in order to grow your business. And you no longer have to. Your marketing strategy can feel good to implement and it can work. You can attract the right clients and customers to your business and grow your profits, all while staying true to who you naturally are. So in the name of honest business growth, bring your unique talents, perspectives, and personality to the table. And join us on this week's podcast episode to discover marketing that feels good for you. Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Personalities Podcast. I'm Britt Colo, and I am solo on the mic today because I have this idea, and I think it's probably going to help some of you. And I decided to bring it to the podcast. It's not even really fully fleshed out, okay? I have no notes in front of me. I literally just hit record. But I feel really strongly that I've been watching this trend kind of unfold in front of me within conversations I've been having. And it's happened so many times over the last few days that I've just been like, you know what? I need to record something about this. I'm going to put it out on the podcast. I'm going to see how people react. Because I have this feeling that there's something to this, okay? So let me tee this up. Again, I have no notes, so buckle up, guys. Let me tee this up for you. So I've been having so many conversations, like between direct messages, emails, and then these strategy check sessions that I've been hosting, a lot of conversations in the last couple of months with you, with my podcast listeners, with my followers, with my email subscribers, with my paying clients. And this one thing keeps coming up in these conversations, and it keeps coming up with thinking types. So what's a thinking type? A thinking type is someone whose third letter in their personality type is T, okay? You're either a thinking type or you're a feeling type. That doesn't mean that some people are thinkers and some people are feelers, because we all think and we all feel. What that means is if you have a T as your third letter in your personality type, you prefer to think in order to make decisions. So you prefer to make your decisions from thought and things that you can, quote unquote, wrap your mind around and think about. You tend to be pretty logical in that way. So you're probably looking at pros and cons lists, data, history in order to make your decisions. On the flip side, if you're a feeling type, you prefer to make your decisions from feelings. So sometimes the data could say one thing, but because you internally feel a different way from what the data is telling you, you're going to prioritize and prefer to make your decision on how you feel rather than look at the data, the history, the pro-con list, all of that. Okay? So now that you know what a thinking type is, you have either said, oh yeah, that's me, or you've said, oh no, actually I'm a feeling type, because you're going to know based on what your letters are in your personality type. And so I've been having this trend pop up in my conversations with specifically thinking types, and it's this. These thinking types are hitting roadblocks in implementing their marketing strategy, launching a new product, pricing their stuff, even launching a business. And they're coming up against this specific roadblock and they're getting stuck there. And it's crippling them, basically. And the roadblock is they have this idea, they've got this new marketing strategy, this new product, this new business, this new pricing structure, whatever this new thing is. And they work out the strategy, they work out the plan, but then they get to a point where they're like, but could this actually work? Their mind comes up with this question, but could this actually work? And because they prefer to make decisions and answer yes or no questions from a thought, a thinking pattern, not their feelings, but actual logistical data, and because they don't have data to say yes or no, they get stuck there. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how this could happen? If you prefer to make decisions from data and there is no data to be had because this is something brand new and you don't know, like there's no way to decide from a knowing place. You kind of have to do it in order to know if it's going to work or not. Do you see how that can be a really tough position to be in? Now, I'm a feeling type. Okay. So I recognize the fact that I'm giving this advice as a feeling type, and I'm looking at this problem primarily as a feeling type. I also recognize pieces of my personality that easily move into a more thinking preference. And so I don't want to say that I can do both. We can all do both, right? Like I said before, we're all thinkers and we're all feelers. It's about your preference. And yes, my preference is to make decisions from my feelings. Can I make decisions from my thinking, my thoughts? Yes, I can. So just know of that bias, just to be fair, right? So from my perspective, I've had several of these conversations, one after another, and I couldn't avoid the trend anymore. I couldn't avoid the pattern. And so I was specifically in these two different conversations on the same day, totally two different people, but these two different people had the same exact personality type. They don't know each other. It was two completely separate conversations, but these two people were ISTJs, okay? ISTJ. So they prefer introversion. They prefer observing rather than intuiting things. So they're more focused on the external, right? So they would rather pick up on external cues than go inward and pick up on internal cues. They are thinking types, right? We've already been through that. And they are judging types, meaning not judgmental, judging, or rather discerning. Honestly, I wish the J was a D because discerning really better encapsulates what J actually stands for. And it means if you're a judging type, you prefer to see things more black and white. There's not as much gray area. You tend to be quite self-assured and you can make a solid decision and not look back as much and like kind of regret or second guess. Meanwhile, the flip side, you could be a P, a perceiving type, and perceivers tend to see more gray area as they look out. And so they're not as quick or as sure when they're making decisions, regardless of where they're making them from, thinking or feeling. Okay. So I'm speaking with these two different ISTJs same day. And it's like I'm having the same exact conversation with these two they don't know each other. It's like I'm having the same exact conversation. And the conversation basically went like this. They had come up with this new thing and they saw the value in it. But they got to this point where they're like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. And they had stayed right there with this super valuable thing basically in their hands, ready to go, ready to be out in the world. And they had stayed there for months, like literal months. And I picked up on that and I realized that they had gotten stuck with this question. Well, but wait, is this actually going to work? And they had just gotten stuck there. And I identified it and I saw it and I thought, okay, we got to get past this. We have to get past this. And so I'm thinking about, okay, I know these people are ISTJs. How do ISTJs operate? ISTJs specifically really like to operate from historical data. Okay. Data. I think I usually say data, and that's weird that I just said data. Do you ever do that? Anyway, so ISTJs really like to make decisions from historical data. There we go. That feels better. They like tradition. They like to see, okay, so it's been done like this before and it worked. And so I'm going to do it like that now. Okay. So they are so dependable. They are so reliable because they uphold tradition. They uphold how things have always been done and they keep us grounded in what is proven to work. So they love tried and true tactics. I mean, all the way around. I mean, this applies to marketing strategy, to business, to career, to relationships, to how they cook meals. Like I'm telling you, if it has worked before and it's got a proven track record, therein. Okay. So that's the ISTJ. Now, you might be listening to this and you're like, okay, I'm a thinking type, but I do not think like that. And that's okay. This is 1 out of 16 personality types. So just stick with me here. But knowing that these ISTJ types are trying to make decisions and move through their life based on historical data, and yet they've created this new thing that has literally no historical data to pull on at all because it exists, but not out in the real world. There's nothing to track yet. They have bumped up on this ledge, basically, like this cliff of could this actually work? And they got stuck there because they didn't feel like they had any data and they didn't think that they could find any data unless they threw it out there, and that didn't feel comfortable for them, right? Now, if you're not an ISTJ, maybe you're a thinker and you're in the explorer tribe, so ISTP or ESTP, you're like, well, why don't you just try it? Like, I don't get it. Like, why don't you just try? Well, okay, that's definitely how you are wired. An ISTJ is not wired like that. And so if I were to go into these conversations with an ISTJ and they're coming up with this hesitation and they're stuck in this place, my advice to them would never be, you just got to get it out there, man. Like, and definitely no shame or shade thrown at someone who, might have been in a conversation with an ISTJ, whether they knew it or not, and gave them that advice. That's fine. It's okay. We're humans. Like, we don't need to tiptoe around everyone's personality types 24/7. Believe me, the girl who talks about this stuff literally 24/7. We don't have to tiptoe it around it that much. However, when we do have the knowledge, specifically about ourselves, this is all about really self-awareness first. So when you know your personality type and you know your preferences, you can use them to your advantage. Once you know this stuff, you can maybe receive advice and more easily be like, maybe that would work for you, but that ain't me, right? You can so much more easily and quickly kind of dismiss the stuff that really was never meant for you so you can find and leverage the things that are meant for you. That's the name of the game around here. So I'm in these conversations with these ISTJs, stuck. They don't know if this is going to work. They don't really feel like they have any data to pull from to know, like to be able to know if it's going to work or not. So they just continue to be stuck. And my advice is not, well, you just got to get it out there. For these two people, here's what I gave them. This is the advice I gave them. And after I gave them this advice, I realized, like this is extra powerful for an ISTJ who needs some historical data, but I think this is really powerful for all thinking types. Hence, why I hit record today and why you're listening to this. Okay, so here's what I told these ISTJs to do. So I encouraged them to do what I am kind of, again, I don't really have a name for it, but let's just call it like the prove it method. Okay. You're in this process with me right now as I just talk this out loud. Let's call it the prove it method. Okay. So what I encouraged them to do was open up a Google spreadsheet. Obviously, they're ISTJs. Their entire brain is a Google spreadsheet. Okay. So, all right, open up your Google spreadsheet, a brand new Google spreadsheet. I mean, is there nothing like, it's so beautiful. It's so crisp and clean and fresh. And then you are going to set a timer for at least 30 minutes. At least. Ideally, I would do this for like 90 minutes just to really prove it to yourself. But set your timer for at least 30 minutes and allow yourself to go down the rabbit hole that is Google. And search until you can't search anymore, trying to find as many possible examples of why the thing that you're stuck on is actually going to work. Because they're out there. They might not be your examples, like you might not have personal data to pull from, but if you just allow yourself literally 30 minutes allowed to go down the wildest, craziest rabbit hole on Google, trying to find examples of why this thing that you're stuck on is actually going to work. Because it's been done before. It actually has been done before. You're going to blow your own mind, basically. That's what's going to happen. You're going to find so many examples of why this thing is going to work that you'll be able to move forward. Okay? Now, I'm going to take you into some more specific examples here. I'll take you into specifically the 2 ISTJs that I was speaking with, but this really could be applied to anything. Seriously, anything. And I've done this myself. And that's why I was able to give this advice to these people, because I remember doing this back when I think before I was self-aware enough to realize that my best decisions came from my feelings, and I really preferred that. Back when I was in my corporate job, I know as I reflect that I operated more as a thinking type. I didn't really necessarily prefer it, but I forced myself to operate that way because I thought I had to, and whatever. That's a whole other story. We do that. We're humans, whatever. So I remember when I was in my corporate job, thinking like I had to make decisions from historical data instead of how I was feeling. You know, my intuition and my feelings were not praised in that job, in that position. And so I had to come up with the data, right? And I remember sitting down with that blank Google sheet and giving myself the permission to just go down the Google rabbit hole and try to find case studies, examples, and reasons why this thing that I had come up with would actually work. Because it actually had been done before, not by me and not by this company, but by others, right? So I encourage you, if you're at all stuck in that place, like, is this gonna work? Could this actually work for me? Google Sheet, 30 minutes on the timer. Allow yourself down the rabbit hole and find as many examples as you possibly can that support the idea that, yeah, actually, this is possible. It is. It is possible. Here are 2 examples. Okay. The first ISTJ I was talking with was kind of living in this very common bubble of online entrepreneurship. If you're listening to this, I think probably like maybe 7, 8 times out of 10, you totally know what I'm talking about here. In this weird incestual bubble of online entrepreneurship, a few trendy things are extremely praised. Instagram stories, video, and quote unquote, putting yourself out there, meaning being the face of your brand. And so this ISTJ really, looked up to and thought like, I have to do marketing that way. Like I have to be the face of my brand. I have to be on Instagram stories. I have to be posting to Instagram and Facebook all the time. And maybe I should have a Facebook group and all these things, right? All those shoulds that my entire company, marketingpersonalities.com, is positioned to wipe away for you and just give you permission to show up in a way that feels good for you. Because when I feel good, my audience feels good. We know this by now, right? But this person who I was speaking with, she had gotten her ISTJ marketing personality type full report. And it was telling her that her best marketing strategy was going to include really technical, tried and true tactics like SEO and digital ad campaigns, and super trackable, right? Like things that we can really, really track so we can gather data quickly. And for her, she was like, okay, that feels really good. Like I would love to just focus on my SEO and some Pinterest, because Pinterest seems fun. It's basically a visual search engine, and maybe some digital ads. And like, I would really, really love to not ever think about Instagram or Facebook ever again in my entire life. But is that actually going to work? Like, I want to make money here. So don't I need Facebook and Instagram? And I could sit there all day and tell her, yes, this could work. You don't need Facebook in it. But for her, I mean, yes, as a thinking type, but also, especially as an ISTJ, she needed to see the data, right? And so I encouraged her, hey, like, how about you sit down for 30 minutes and go down the rabbit hole on Google, trying to find as many companies as you possibly can who are using primarily search engine optimization to fuel their sales. Like, that's it. Okay. Now, if you're in the online entrepreneur space, you might even be thinking like, wait, what? Like, really? Like, that's a thing? Yes, it's definitely a thing, and this is bubbles of thought sometimes can be helpful, but they're bubbles, and they might keep us safe for a little while, but they also might keep us really narrow-minded. We have to be careful about that. That's a whole other topic. That might be another random riff that needs to happen. But that's beside the point. So this ISTJ needed to go prove to herself that it would be enough, and it could absolutely work, to just focus on SEO and Pinterest. That's it. Like, period. End of story. That's all she would focus on with her marketing. And what ended up happening was, it didn't take very long to find companies that were really structured and only thinking about SEO, and they were killing it. She found case studies and income reports and SEO data reports, and it allowed her that SEO fire within her that already felt like, yeah, that could be really fun. Like that, I feel like that could work for my brain, but I'm a little scared to let go of the Facebook and Instagram. Like, it completely squashed the idea that Facebook and Instagram were necessary. And it fully lit that fire under her of like, yes, I am focusing on SEO now. Bye. Like, that's all. I am like so on fire for this. She just needed to prove it to herself, right? Like, prove it. You can prove it. Maybe not from your own data, but with other people's data, heck yeah. I mean, we have Google at our fingertips literally 24 hours a day, all days of the week. Why don't we use it, right? Here's the other example from the other ISTJ that I spoke with. She's been in business for a while, and she's really good at what she does. And like, really good, you guys. She's seriously an expert. And she was creating this kind of like premium level service offering. And she kind of was in the place where she felt like, if I really offer this service and I really provide it, I'm going to have to put a pretty solid price tag on it for it to be worth it to me. And she got thinking about what the price tag really could be and should be valued at. And she got stuck because she thought, ooh, could that actually work? Like, could people actually pay me that much money in one fell swoop? Like, is that even possible? And her, as an ISTJ, wanting data, she didn't have any personal data. She had never put that number on an invoice before. Like, not even really close. So she had no personal data to pull from, and then she just got stuck there. So I encouraged her, hey, blank Google spreadsheet, 30 minutes on the timer, go try to find proof that the companies that you would want to work with invest that kind of money in services, like any service. Like, just let's go see how these types of companies invest their money. Can you come up with income reports? Can you come up with any kind of data that would support the fact that this price tag is not going to freak them out, and they're not going to say no just because they think the price is too high? Okay. And such cool stuff came out of this experience because it didn't take very long to realize, oh, that price tag looks big for me as like this solopreneur, right? Like, me investing that kind of money is out of the question, but not for these companies that I'm going to consult with. Like, that number is like nothing to them, right? It didn't take very long for her to realize that, oh, okay. My perspective of that number is not the perspective that my ideal client has. And so, yes, it is totally possible to put that number on my invoice and get paid. Like, it's totally, and she needed to prove it to herself. So those are just two examples. You can literally apply this to anything. And I'm so curious how this transpires and how this might work out for you. So especially if you're a thinking type. Now, if you're a feeling type, if you prefer to make decisions from your feelings, you might, if you're still listening, wow, I'm thrilled. Maybe you're listening from a place of like, oh, maybe I could use this in my own process. Maybe you're married to the thinking type, or your best friend is a thinking type, or one of your business friends is a thinking type, and you're just trying to learn and then maybe share this with them. However and why ever you're still here, bless you. I don't know that the prove it method really is necessary for the true feeling type, because at the end of the day, like, we could still make a decision completely opposite of what the data tells us and feel totally okay with that. And so you might not have to do this step, but for thinking types, I really do. I have a sense that this could be a really crucial piece of someone's process to get unstuck. So try it out. And I will be very interested and curious to hear how it goes, what happens, what you find out. The best place to share your findings with me is always on Instagram. You can come find me at Marketing Personalities. Send me a direct message. Lots of conversations happening over there. Would be so interested to hear how this goes. And you can always also email me, right? You know how to do that, Britt@marketingpersonalities.com. So I'm curious to hear how this lands, how you might put this into play. Maybe you already do a version of this. I don't know. Tell me. I'm very curious. And I can kind of see if enough of you thinking types put this into play and start to find awesome stuff from it, then this is something I want to get in front of more thinking types, because I think it could really help people become unstuck in a unique way, right? Because we all do this differently. And that's the point here. Like, okay, a lot of us get stuck. We all get stuck at some point. And we might all go about it in a different way to get unstuck. So I love highlighting that. And it totally lights me up to find little intricacies and unique processes that I can somehow see the connection back to the personality type. It's endlessly fascinating to me. From what I hear, it's pretty fascinating to you too. So if you're a thinking type, try this out if you want to, if you feel like you need to, and then share with me how it goes. I am so curious to hear. Okay, so that's it, guys. I think we did it. I mean, that was pretty okay, right? No notes. That was fun. So here's what's up. Next week is going to be another solo episode that I'm really excited about. Do I want to tell you about it now? Yeah, I do want to tell you about it now. So here's what I'm doing. Like, as you're listening to this, I'm probably doing this right now. If you're listening to this at the time the podcast goes live, I am curating a 2020 business conference list, and I'm organizing and categorizing the event list based on personality type. Okay. So if you've ever, gotten to the end of a year and you're like thinking about your travel plans for the next year, I mean, hand is raised. I do this every single year. And you're thinking, ooh, what conferences do I want to go to next year? And what events do I want to go to next year? Which ones are kind of like calling to me? Of course, that's how I make my decisions, because I'm an intuitive feeler. But, you might be like, well, I got to put it in a spreadsheet. Where is it? How much is it going to cost? What am I going to learn? So I want to help you out if you're doing that right now and you're thinking about what conferences you want to go to. I want to, and I am, creating this mega list of business and marketing conferences in 2020. I'm categorizing it based on personality type, and the plan is to publish it next week, next Thursday, the day that our next podcast episode goes live. And the podcast episode that you hear is going to take you through some of those recommendations. And then I'm going to share with you where to go to get the full on list. How does that sound? Like, I am super excited about this. I can't wait to get this into your hands. So next week, don't miss the episode. It's going to be a good one. I'll talk to you then. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Marketing Personalities Podcast.
Now it's time to connect your marketing strategy to your personality type. Go to marketingpersonalities.com/MPP to download your marketing personality type full report. Use the code MPP at checkout to get $10 off. And that's a super special code for podcast listeners as a way to say thank you for being here. In your full report, you'll learn about your personality type, how it relates to the work you do, what your best marketing strategy includes so you can start implementing it right away, what your worst marketing strategy includes so you can avoid it, and so much more. Go to marketingpersonalities.com/MPP to get your full report and use the code MPP at checkout to receive $10 off your purchase. And one more thing before you skip on to the next podcast. Would you please share this episode with your entrepreneur friends who also need to feel good about their marketing strategies? Take a quick screenshot of your podcast app right now and share it out via text, Facebook, or my favorite, Instagram. Remember to tag me at Marketing Personalities in the photo so I can be sure to send you a huge high five and thank you for sharing the love. This podcast is edited and produced by the Podcast Engineers. They're pretty great, and you can find them at podcastengineers.com. That's all for now. Thanks as always for listening, and I'll catch you back here next week on the Marketing Personalities Podcast. Love ya. Bye.